You're listening to The Arms Room on the Vets on Media Network.
All right, you are on The Arms Room with Glenn
and John.
All right. So the Patriots won the Super Bowl. Do you know how I know?
Lay thine eyes upon the field, my friend.
So do you know how I know the Patriots won the Super Bowl?
Because it was on the news?
I Googled it.
Good job.
That's how I know.
Good job.
Oh, easy sports fans. I don't really care that much about sports.
Yeah, I don't either.
I will watch sports if
I'm at somebody's house and it's on.
Yeah.
I don't act, or if I'm like at a sports bar or something. I
do try to catch the big games, but I was busy yesterday.
Meh.
You know?
I wasn't.
I had things to do, man.
Matt's grinding his teeth right now.
Yeah, Matt's.
Matt. Our good friend Matt hates me right now. Friday morning, I got invited to the Super Bowl breakfast.
Right.
And then Matt offered me a security job that he was unable to attend at the NFL Players Association event room at the W in Scottsdale.
Yeah, and I couldn't go because I didn't have a suit.
Why do you not have a suit? Don't you go to like these church things every week?
I don't wear a suit, dude.
Yeah, but you're 30 something and you need to buy a suit.
I have a suit from many moons ago, but it just doesn't look that nice. It's an old jacket. So I said no, I didn't have a suit.
You could probably fit in one of mine.
Our good friend Jason wore the same
Choke
suit.
yourself.
Our good friend Jason wore the same suit that he wore when he was in high school.
Oh.
So old suits are still cool, man.
I heard it was a pretty easy gig. You guys just
it was super
there
easy.
and
I literally stood there and did nothing.
It's fantastic.
Watch the free shit army come out too.
Oh, I bet.
It was pretty amazing. It's a good weekend though. That one's for you. Go ahead and bleep that, buddy.
Oh, bleep.
Not even 5 minutes in, John.
So, a couple newsworthy things. And I forgot my stinking laptop today. So I'm going to have to recall with my mind these news stories. News story that was really, really awesome. High motivation. A young man worked to lose 150 pounds so that he could join the United States Infantry.
That's cool.
It took him like a year and a half. It took him like a year and a half. I mean, he was highly, highly dedicated. And the story's really great because, he struggled at first. It was hard to change his lifestyle. It was hard to change his diets, his exercise. And then finally he got to the point where he was able to do it, lost 150 pounds, started basic, I think a couple months ago or something like that. I can't remember what the time frame was, but very cool. I just thought that was really awesome. In a world of people who won't do much to stay in shape or achieve their goals, and the lazier that I think society's getting because everything's too hard. That was an inspiring story. I mean,
it is quite inspiring. Was that on that? Obviously, wasn't on regular news.
I think it was on the Army Times.
Okay, all right.
I think so.
How old's the kid? 18?
No, he was in his early 20s.
It's still cool.
It's still legit. I mean,
how many young people have that?
Motivation.
Motivation. Yeah. I'm going to go sit and get high and play Xbox for the next week.
I want to join the Army. Oh, I got to lose 150 pounds? Never mind. I'll just play Call of Duty.
Yeah.
It's the same
thing. So, what else? Oh, I'm sitting there last night with my wife. She's reading me some news stories. Another toddler shoots his parents with a gun found in his mom's purse. Again, I apologize, no laptop, so I can't cite those quotes or what are stories. I guess I can look it up on my phone, but I hate doing that. He pulled the gun out. He was trying to get her iPhone to play a game. Pulled the gun out. They were in the store, I think. Shot her. So my wife's reading this, and she's like, he pulls the gun out. He shoots the mom. She's pregnant. Shoots the mom in the shoulder. The bullet goes through her shoulder and somehow ends up in the dad's butt. And then the dad's like,
okay, oh my gosh. I had a total image go through my mind of how that would happen, but not in a store.
Yeah.
I'm hoping. I mean, I don't know. It depends on where we were at, I guess.
So I'm like, okay. Oh, then the dad didn't notice he'd been shot. he was just like, oh, my wife's bleeding from the shoulder and was taking care of that. Didn't realize that he'd been shot. And so, like, honestly, the first thing that flashed to my head isn't, oh my gosh, someone's been shot. It's must have been a 380. That was the thing that went through my head.
Not if it went all the way through the mom's shoulder.
Well, if she was doing the right thing and carrying ball ammo, like all 380 shooters ought to. That was an accident. You don't have to bleep that.
The second time was not so.
No, but that's just you messed up the word.
Yeah.
You're not cussing.
See, I'm not actually cursing, Mason.
Oh, son of a!
I don't think the Army network is going to go for this.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to. Dang it. So that's that. What else?
Wow.
There was something else I want to talk about.
I think it's funny that your wife reads you news stories.
I was
too,
going to say
'cause
the
that's
same-
where I get my news.
I was going to say the same exact thing.
I don't
she
watch.
sends me news stories. She
Yeah,
reads them to me. She's incredibly helpful that way.
Yes,
Because she then sorts through all the useless stuff and then sends me the good stuff.
exactly.
And that's what I like.
So she's your editor.
She's like, yeah, she's like
She
my,
edits the world for
she's
you.
my content editor. I like it. I don't have to worry about all this silliness.
Excellent work, Mrs. Stilson. Excellent work.
Fantastic. All right. So today in the studio with us, we have our good friend Cecil Burch from Immediate Action Combatives.
Yeah.
He's been in the studio before. I was not here that day, but he's been in the studio
that's
before talking with Matt,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
About
here either.
about the gray man concept.
Yeah.
And here he is, of course, exemplifying that,
Gray man.
being the awesome gray man. You know what's fantastic about Cecil? I'm going to stroke his ego a little bit before we get started.
It's good because nobody else does.
What's great about Cecil is I always tell people, he's the guy who looks like an insurance salesman, right?
Wait a minute. Isn't that what he does?
Because that's what he does, right? And that's what he looks like. And it's awesome because Cecil is an incredibly accomplished person. He's accomplished a lot in various different combatives and fighting styles. He's accomplished a lot with the people that he trains with and works with. Typically when Cecil's rolling with people, it's not like he's just rolling with a bunch of random dudes. He's rolling with incredibly accomplished people, and he's able to offer them something to kind of compete against. And so that's great, because if I went and rolled with those guys,
come out looking like a pretzel.
I don't even know if that's a workout for them. You know what I mean? I don't
They're
even
like,
know.
no,
I don't even know if I could offer them a good physical fitness routine.
I make things up and do as I want with
That's
people.
right. That's right. That's the black belt one.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming in, Cecil.
Oh, you bet. It's fun. I enjoy it.
So today we're going to be talking a little bit about resistance and training, and kind of let's start a little bit with the difference between combatives and traditional martial arts, because that's something that we've talked about before extensively. So kind of give me your standpoint on what's the difference between martial arts and combatives.
I don't have a huge difference between the two in my mind. It's almost more of a mindset approach. I think the traditional approach to martial arts is very much, we do it this way because my instructor did it and told it to me, and it's been in this village in Southeast Asia for 300 years. So we're going to do it that way, and we're going to train it the way that they did back then. Whereas combatives could be using the same exact technique, but done in a way, let's figure out how to make this work. And if we have a new training method, if we have a new technology that we can use to train it because we want it to work, we're going to do it. So martial arts is more almost social. Hey, I'm doing this for some kind of fun activity, and combatives can be that, but it's got to work, hands down.
Well, so growing up, I got involved in martial arts like a lot of people did, and it's Taekwondo. Now, Taekwondo is very form-driven, very physical fitness-driven, very discipline-driven. There was a lot of repetition, a lot of kind of almost monotonous stuff. It was very much into doing this thing exactly perfectly this way so that you can get your next belt. Whereas in combatives, as I've gotten older and shifted away from that and moved more into combatives, I mean, my first introduction to that being in basic training, which is really, really basic combatives. But I was like, holy crap. You know what I mean? Like, we're learning how to kill people here. This is not Taekwondo, And that was a very different experience. And then going into, the combatives that I've trained in now, I've spent some time in Krav. I've spent some time in some basic BJJ stuff, some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. and just kind of some other mixed combatives, almost MMA style stuff.
Sure.
And I see the difference I see is that I can apply combatives to the real world. Like I was kind of joking with you before the show, if I try to, high kick you Taekwondo style, you're going to wreck my world.
Yeah, but I think that goes to the mindset thing, because if you've got a guy that's extremely accomplished, Taekwondo, karate, whatever your traditional style is, if you've got a guy that's extremely accomplished in that and understands the application of it in real world situations, he's going to be able to pull off that high kick outside of the bar.
Yeah, but see, I don't think it's a mindset thing, because I'm going to refer back to Cecil's most recent article, which I really like. That is more that things are more skill based than mindset based, because in a traditional martial art like Taekwondo, and understand, of course, I'm not bagging on these. I'm not saying you shouldn't do them. They're good. It's a good way to build basics and a good way to build strength and discipline and all that kind of stuff. But the downside is that if that's going to be my focus, there is not a mindset in there of destroying your enemy, so to speak. You know what I mean? There is a okay, we're going to do this match. We're going to spar. I'm going to score a point, and then we're going to reset. And then you're going to score a point, and then we're going to reset. And I'm not saying that necessarily that then when you get out on the real world, you're going to, some people think that it's like you're so stupid or something that like, oh, now I'm just going to be scoring points and then I'm going to be resetting. Like that's taking things a little bit too far. It's taking that muscle memory programming thing a little bit too far. But understand that that's kind of what it is based on. Like our instructor, Brian, who teaches our combatives programs through independence training, one of his whole things is always, when you're training, always finish the move. Like that's something he always does with his students. Is like, okay, now that we've got this, now that I've got you on the ground, we're going to finish the move. We're going to finish whatever it is we were here to finish. We're not just going to get you on the ground and then reset, because this whole idea is kind of building this skill and this understanding of, let's not just stop here. And I think that's, correct me if I'm wrong, Cecil, the point of the most recent article you wrote, but the point of it seemed to be like skills are always going to trump mindset.
The point I was trying to make was that there seems to be this almost fight back from some parts of the community, more firearms community, more the tactical community, that somehow mindset alone, if we just want it to happen, we'll will it to happen. Bad warriors. We can do it. That's suddenly going to make us Hulk out and be able to defeat anybody. Whereas if the guy has a good skill set, a proper combatives trained functional skill set, it doesn't matter how tough your mindset is. That's like that video I posted on the article. That guy was bigger, stronger. He knew the fight was coming. It wasn't an ambush, and he got beat. And he was doing all those mindset. He's trying to slam the guy and squish him like a bug on the concrete. It didn't matter, because the smaller guy's skill set was so superior. And I think you need mindset for sure, but you better train it properly. And I think that goes back to what we were trying to start with, is the idea that the traditional martial arts have techniques, but it might not be how you train it is what works. You have to train it a certain way for you to be able to be combative, to use it in a, Taekwondo is a really good example, because the South Korean Special Forces, that's their hand-to-hand combat system is Taekwondo.
But I would wager that it is taught a lot different, completely different than American Taekwondo.
It's traditional. It's traditional as opposed to the sport base.
Well, no, but what they train, the way the Korean Army guys train it, is you put gloves on and you bang the hell out of each other. It's combative. It's the technique is the same as you'd learn in any Taekwondo school, but the way it's trained, the mindset's different, the attitude is different, and how you train it is completely different, because, they train with resistance.
Right. Which is what we kind of want to get into here, which is why do we need resistance in training? And that I think what's lacking, and we're gonna kind of stay out of the firearm side of the house today, as much as we can, even though we're all gun guys, it's kind of hard to, but and focus more on the hand-to-hand combatives type stuff, which I don't really like the term hand-to-hand, but
I don't either, but there's no good,
but there's really no way to get around it.
But no good one.
Combatives is what I try to refer to it as, defensive tactics, whatever, we're all calling it the same thing, I guess. But, I'd like to stay focused more on that, but to go to the gun side for just a second, and the idea of resistance and training, It's when anytime you see force on force training, and I've been through a handful of different force on force training classes, obviously to include, our friend Craig Douglas from ShivWorks, things like that. I've done scenario based stuff, which is more like, hey, you're getting out of the car and you're getting robbed and whatever, I've done that kind of stuff. And the interesting thing about force on force training is that it takes most of what you learned on the square range and really alters it. Now, here's one thing that I did notice, and it was like the manipulation and marksmanship. Guys who were established on the square range, who could hit their target, who could control their gun, who could manipulate their weapon. We see it in ECQC, guys start rocking manipulations single-handed, because they're holding the dude down with one hand. Sim's gun jams because it's gonna jam, right?
It's gonna
jam malfunction, all right? It's gonna have an issue. And so the ability to clear that thing one-handed. The thing that people learn on square ranges can be applied, but again, it goes back to that skill and mindset mix. And so in combatives, I think it's very much the same way.
Same exact thing.
Where we can be in a gym and we can practice punching bags, punching dummies, sparring with each other, whatever. And we can go into force on force, so to speak, where we're actually making contact with people.
Right.
And we can totally fail, regardless of how good our skill sets were, if we don't apply that.
Absolutely.
Appropriate
You
mindset.
can take the guy who looks awesome. I came through a martial art good chunk of the 80s and early 90s where we thought of ourselves as very modern, cutting edge, eclectic stuff. And we did all the appearance of fighting. We hit heavy bag. We hit focus mitts. I was awesome on the focus mitts. You watch me on the heavy bag, you think I'm a pro fighter. Soon as you go, all of a sudden I'd spar. I'd have a great combination on a heavy bag that I'd just destroy the heavy bag. I'd go against somebody, put gloves on. All right, let's train, let's spar. And I couldn't hit him. I couldn't hit him with a jab.
Because he doesn't want to get hit.
Because he doesn't want to get hit. He's moving. He's not the heavy bag staying there. He's given me resistance. And it alters what I'm doing. Now, it doesn't alter the mechanics of the technique, but I've got to figure out how to make it land.
And that's where that mindset
That's where the mindset comes in.
So even though the skill, as we mentioned earlier, skill set, I believe I'm with you that I think skill set is going to overcome, or I should say not overcome, it's more important than mindset, because you can have all the mindset in the world, but if you don't have the skill set, it's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
You have to be able to do certain things. And that being said, you have to be able to adapt your skill set to whatever the situation is. So that's where I think the resistance is so important. So
Absolutely.
How do people find resistance in training? I mean, you're obviously still competitively in combatives. You teach combatives. You do seminars about combatives. I mean, you're pretty heavily involved in this industry.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to go, if I, Joe Blow, nobody, maybe I have a little bit of martial arts background, maybe I have no background, maybe I have a little fighting background, whatever. How do I find the right kind of resistance? Because there's kind of the wrong kind of resistance too.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a second. What is the wrong kind of resistance for someone who's trying to learn?
Well, it's funny. There's always the argument, and anytime you get into a debate with somebody about this technique or that, oh no, well, we tested it, we resisted test. All right, okay. So we've got to have sort of a base. What's the base? So realistically, when you're talking about resistance, it's sort of 4 components. Number 1, you got to have a resisting opponent. Makes sense. He's got to not let you do what you're trying to do. That's number 1. That's where most people stop though. But it goes deeper than that. Now that guy, not only is he resisting, he's got to have opposing will. He has to be able to want to stop you.
Okay.
He also has, and this is kind of a weird phrasing of it, but there's no better way, malevolent intent. And it's not necessarily he's trying to kill you, but he wants to win and he wants you to fail. It's not just he wants to stop you. He wants to do something back to you. So I'm going to do this awesome wrist lock defensive takedown. But if he's not only is he resisting me and trying to counter it, he's trying to put me in a bad place. And then the 4th one, where it really breaks down, is where people screw up, is freedom of realistic action. Because if you say, all right, let's defend a takedown. This guy's going to do a takedown. Okay, maybe that works. But that's not real, because that guy, you don't know what he's going to do in the street. Not only can he do a takedown, maybe he does 10 different takedowns. Maybe he kicks, maybe he punches, maybe he throws something at you. So if all you're defending is one technique, I would argue that's not really much resistance. Maybe it's a step, but it's not full on. So you've got to have all those 4 components to say, all right, this, if I can deal with this, that's true pressure. That's true resistance. And if my method, my style, my technique can get through that, probably it's going to work when it goes real, or at least I have a better shot at it. The percentage is better on my side.
So it's really important that people not be put in a box, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can, it's easy to say, okay, here's the step. Okay, this guy's going to throw a punch at you and you're going to defend. Okay, cool. That's an important part of it. But if that's where it ends, that's only like step 1 in resistance. We've got to go more and more and more till you get to that point. Obviously, we're not going to do a full out fight. That's just, human body can't handle that. But if we can come as close as possible, as often as we realistically can, okay, now we know we've got something.
Oftentimes, excuse me, when I've found myself in combatives training, they'll talk about a percentage, like we're going to go 50%, we're going to go 60%, we're going to go 75%. This is normally what I see happen. And I see it happen a lot in like Craig's ECQC class, where it's like, okay, we're going to go about half speed. Well, what'll happen is guys will find themselves in a situation where they start getting rocked, right?
Yep.
And they crank it up a notch.
Yep.
Because they're trying to win. So they'll
but your
crank it up
50% and my 50% are different.
So
I have to match your 50%.
How do you gauge what's an appropriate amount of resistance? Like, here's an example. All right. So, I'm pretty confident on my feet, relatively athletic and strong, but my skill set's nowhere close to what your skill set's going to be. So if you and I were going to spar together, if we were going to roll together, how would you gauge? Because I'm going to have to crank it up a notch just to be able to stay on your level. How do you gauge on how low you're going to take? I think this is an important issue that we find. Absolutely. Just as an example, we used to teach some women's self-defense classes. We don't teach those anymore for a couple of reasons, but what we would find happening is we would teach women these really simple techniques, and then we would hear back from them later, and they would go, well, I went home and I tried that on my husband and I couldn't get free, or I couldn't do the damage. And I go, okay, well, he was giving you 100%, right? He walked up and grabbed you as tight as he could and was like, all right, show me what that guy taught you. And then it's like, okay, well, are you willing to throw your head back, stomp his foot, reach down and grab his, what's an appropriate word to say, Mason?
Dude bits.
His junk. Dude parts.
His junk.
Junk, okay. You're going to reach down and get a handful of glory or whatever. Are you going to reach back and start ripping and tearing and punching and scratching, stomping? Are you going to do that to him? Then you have to tell him, if you're going to go 100%, I'm going to go 100%.
Right.
So we'll see that, like that's just an example of some of the failures we would see when people would try to pressure test some of the training that we gave them. So how do you, as an instructor who does this a lot, how do you find the right resistance level?
Well, that's really tough. You have to have an instructor who's fully engaged in watching this kind of stuff. You can't just tell them, hey, do this, and let them go, because it's just impossible, especially when you have a group of people who may have not really done anything. You've got to guide them. You've got to explain and demonstrate what that percentage change is. Number one, hey, this is what I mean by 50%. This is what I mean about 30%. This is what I mean about 90%. Mm-hmm. And then the second part is you have to go at the level that your partner can handle. We're talking about training now. This isn't the full on, let's see if this works final test. Mm-hmm. While you're training, you have to go, if you have two people who are unequal physically or skill wise, whatever, you have to go at the level of the lesser person. So that guy who's 300 pounds, he has to fight like he's a 150-pound guy if he's going with a 150-pound guy. Mm-hmm. And the instructor has to make sure that that happens. It's probably one of the toughest parts. And then you have to also tell the people and show them, hey, we're training. this is 50%. So you learn it. And then you got it down a little bit better. Let's go up to 70%, 80%. All right. You've done pretty well. We're going to put some gear on. We're going to get the Sims guns out. We're going to get the training knives out. And now you can bang the hell out of each other and go at 98%. Mm-hmm. But that's you have to make sure that everybody understands it, especially somebody who comes from the outside world who hasn't done it before. Because and the problem is they're conditioned by too much the way it's been taught in the media, even in the martial art magazines, self-defense stuff is, hey, here's 10 easy moves to defeat the champion MMA fighter.
Right.
The 100-pound woman can make this work after an hour of practice. Sorry, guys. It might be 10 awesome moves, but you need to put some flight time in to do it. The simplest move might still take 10 hours of practice of graduated stuff. And I think as instructors, we have to make sure that people understand there's no free pass. There's no, here you go. You've just paid me $200 for a weekend seminar, and I've given you an hour's worth of stuff that you can now kill. You're the Terminator.
Right.
It's sorry. I can take the technique that Anderson Silva just used to win his fight on Saturday. Same exact techniques. Teach it to you. You're not going to do it like Anderson Silva after a week.
Especially under the same amount of stress.
From another elite level fighter. That takes time. And that's what we have to get across to people. It's not easy self-defense. It's self-defense. It's a start. But we need a little bit more work. That's why I have not yet done that women's self-defense thing. That 4-hour course. I've been asked to do it a couple times. And I'm just like, I'm not comfortable yet because I don't know like you said, they're going to now go and go, okay,
I'm ready.
I got it. And then, dumbass husband
and then it's confidence shattering for him.
Right.
And like, oh, well, this doesn't move.
Even my husband who's being good to me. No, your husband's probably being more of an ass to you to keep his dominance in the household.
Right.
He might be working harder than the bad guy trying to mug you.
This guy's not trying to take your purse. He's trying to keep his dignity.
Exactly. So that's a really difficult thing. And you look at the guy. Oh, I saw you do the same thing when we did the carbine course in November. We had the 3 women that you were teaching, a bunch of the other guys, and you had to make sure that the women, they're obviously the brand new ones. They're not shooting as well as a couple of those guys, but you still had to say, look, work at it, keep shooting. Look how much better you were at the end of the day. And with a little more practice, you'll be better. And that's the only way to approach it regardless of what we're talking about.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to keep talking about resistance and training. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how to pressure test and how to find the right people to train with, because I think that's an important thing, and how to actually pressure test some of the stuff that you feel like you need to work on. So we're going to take a break. You are listening to The Arms Room.
Would you like to own a thriving business and help employ local veterans? The Vetraplex Handyman Construction and Landscape business is the opportunity you've been waiting for. The Vetraplex is your gateway to an affordable startup business with 0% financing for qualifying owners. By owning a Vetraplex franchise, you will be hiring veterans, providing them both income and opportunity, while at the same time providing your customers a way to say, thank you for your service to our nation's veterans. For more information, visit vetraplex.org. Again, that's vetraplex.org, or call 928-284-2022.
Breaker 19. How about that bandit? You got some ears on, son?
Have you ever wanted to be a truck driver? If so, pay attention. If not, pay attention anyway. Southwest Truck Driver Training offers everything you need to get started. You can get hired before you begin training. They've got GI Bill approved training facilities, day, night, or weekend programs to fit your busy schedule. If you have any questions, no sweat. They've got veteran supportive campuses with veterans on staff to serve you. And on top of that, they have lifetime job placement assistance. Put the pedal to the metal. Call Southwest Truck Driver Training today.
Everyone's Everyone's going to need an attorney at some point in your life. I'm no different. Hey everyone, it's James from Vets On. Whether it was my last will and testament before deployment or my ongoing custody battle for my children during my divorce, I needed help, so I lawyered up. If you need help, I urge you to contact Capstrom Law Firm. Capstrom Law Firm in Springfield, Missouri services clients throughout the state in criminal law, personal injury, and family law. With over 13 years practicing law, Tom Capstrom understands both law and court procedures and how stressful they can be. Let Tom Capstrom Law Firm and his dedicated staff take the stress and worry out of a difficult situation by calling him today. We feel so strong about the work that Tom and his staff are doing that he'll be a monthly guest on the show. Tom is a veteran and a listener, for God's sake, so you know the guy is solid and will fight for you. Give Tom a call today by calling 417-864-0552 or email Tom at capstromlaw.com. And don't forget to tell him that Vets On sent you.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
If you or someone you know is looking for a new job or career, you need to visit the pros. National Career Fairs at ncfairs.com. National Career Fairs hosts over 300 career fairs a year nationwide. The events are free and give you the perfect chance to meet some of the top employers in your area face-to-face. To find the nearest career fair to you, visit ncfairs.com. Again, that's ncfairs.com. What are you waiting for?
You're listening to The Arms Room on the Vets On Media Network.
All right, you are back on the Arms Room. Today we're talking about resistance and training with Cecil Burch from Immediate Action Combatives. I want to mention that today our show is brought to you by AR-500 Armor.
What?
Again, we have our wonderful Banshee carrier here in the studio with us. This basically has just become my truck rig. It goes everywhere I go now.
Dude, I'm bringing in like a bottle of ketchup and a packet of mayonnaise.
That's terrible. That is disgusting. It's not a taco, dude.
They are, in fact, tacos.
You don't put, you put ketchup and mayonnaise on tacos?
I'll put what I want on mayonnaise kid or on tacos kid. I do what I want. When you become a man, you'll also put mayonnaise on your tacos.
Whoa, too far. I pee standing up. All right, I am in fact a man.
I'm a real boy.
I'm going to be going by AR-500 Armor today after the show to,
me too.
Yeah, to get their new pick up one of their new mini carriers because they demoed them. Well, we kind of worked with them a little bit before SHOT Show. They demoed them. Very, very cool. Perfect, I think, for the average person, especially. Something like this is great. It's great if you need it, if you need this kind of coverage. But I love the new mini carriers.
How much smaller is the mini?
8x10.
8x10 plate.
Actually, really good for children,
Just
too.
an 8x10 plate. Good for kids. Good for ladies.
But set up like
good
that.
for concealable. Yeah, so it's still PALS. It's still PALS compatible. No cummerbund. Smaller straps. So that way, you know, it's something that's real small, lightweight, easy.
Fit under the seat of your truck.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Easy to carry around with you. Easy to conceal. You know, you could literally throw it underneath the dress shirt you're wearing right now, and it would be difficult to tell in most positions you would probably be sitting in that you even had a carrier on. Yeah, and then it does have PALS webbing on it, so you can throw a couple pouches or something like that on if you want to carry around. But yeah, I'm excited to get one. I'm going to get one. Mini me over there in the corner is going to try it out and train with it a little bit.
Nice. Oh, yeah.
But it's perfect for kids, perfect for ladies, perfect for like resistance training. I'm gonna start wearing it when I run and do exercises. Something like this is fine. You know, you can use something like this when you exercise, but man,
they suck.
It's big and bulky. You know, sometimes it almost makes it dangerous. You can injure yourself using something this big and this bulky and this heavy. But
get a lot of strange looks too running down the street with that on.
I don't care, dude.
Especially,
I just wear a ski mask when I run like that.
Oh yeah,
it's no big deal.
Wearing a ski mask with that on running down the street probably get a lot more.
Well, that's okay. They can look at me all they want. They don't know where I live. I'm Batman. So, anyways,
yeah, let's get this train back on the tracks.
Get this train back on the tracks. All right. So back to resistance and training. So, if you guys have any questions for Cecil, you can always call us 602-399-7787. We know that most of our listeners listen to our show after it's not live. So go ahead and get on our Facebook page. You can always ask us questions on there, and we'll certainly relay them to Cecil if you have some questions for him. Check him out, iacombatives.com. Is that the website, right?
That's it. That's my website.
iacombatives.com. Check it out. Lots of cool stuff that he has on there. Some really, really good, insightful posts and articles on training. They're pretty good, man. I really like them. So back to the resistance on training. concept. How does someone find? So now we've kind of identified what we don't want in training. So now how does someone find the right people to train with? Because that's important.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you find them? How do you, if you're a nobody in the community and you don't really hang out with a bunch of fighters or anything like that, how do you find the right people to train with?
Man, that is the tough part, because we're at this point now where a lot of this idea is being more accepted. I remember first starting to do this 2007-ish or so.
Mm-hmm.
Man, the resistance from especially the gun forums and stuff like that was just tremendous.
Oh yeah.
Now we're at the point where it's rare that you get that level. I mean, you get one or two, every now and then it's some guy, oh, we don't need that. But for the most part, most people will at least acknowledge you kind of have to do some of it. So we're at that good point. We're at a point where there's certain gyms and places to train that probably we were at a better point, but still it's almost too much because you can get screwed up. I think really what you need to do is hit certain social media and certain internet sites. I'll throw in a plug to ShivWorks,
mm-hmm.
our friend Craig Douglas, and his website, totalprotectioninteractive.com. There's a lot of stuff on there about, there's a ton of content on there, free info, guidance.
And the TPI forums are good too, because the moderation there is really good.
Yeah.
So any tomfoolery is done.
This
isn't like most of the other forums you go on and there can be tomfoolery over here. Someone jumps on and starts making asinine comments. It's really well moderated, and most of the guys on there are really squared away.
And it's like the moderators don't have to do a lot because the community is fairly self-policing.
Most kind of people who are going to go in there and just troll and stir up crap are not actually going to try to make any posts there because they know what's going to happen.
Right. And when they do it, it's pretty apparent pretty quickly, and then they're gone.
Yeah. So
it's a good place, and there's a ton of stuff about what should we be doing, where should we go. My default is find where Craig Douglas is teaching his ECQC course. Take that course. And that will give you a pretty good idea of where to go at that point.
Well, what else is good about taking it, since we like Craig, of course, we had him on the show, we host his classes. I attended a lot of his classes. He's a great person and a great instructor, which are, two very important things to have when you're training with somebody. But what's nice about going to those kind of classes is, that's how I got introduced to you.
Yep.
That's how I get introduced to some of the other guys that are now our students in independence training, or that we now train with, elsewhere.
Exactly.
So it's a really great way to find the people in your area who think like you do, is to find I call it a well-known standard, which would be ECQC.
Yep.
I have never been to a Craig Douglas class and encountered a jerk or someone who's incredibly egotistical or anything like that, like you would in some other training, because there's no room for it.
They'll get found out right away.
There's no room for it in that training.
And the reputation now is people know that.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter who you are, you're going to be put on the spot and pressure tested.
Well, I like to always, describe ShivWorks classes by everybody dies.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Everybody dies. Even with the wall of light, right, Cecil? Even with the wall of light, everybody died. I tried to take Cecil out with a wall of light in one of the arm movement instructors, and I got shot in the back repeatedly.
Well, it's like those two guys that were at the last ECQC we hosted.
Yeah.
Both relatively new to the lifestyle in general.
Yeah.
And boy, did they jump in head over feet into that class. And at the end of that class, and throughout that whole class, like watching those guys get completely wrecked, like everybody gets wrecked. At no point did those guys puff their chest or try to
quit.
Say or quit or do anything. They took it because they were like, okay, this is new. Well, let's go.
Nobody
got
head
first into this.
Nobody got beat up.
No.
Everybody got wrecked.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody ended up at a great spot. Like, This is cool. Let's keep doing this. And like you said, then you get people to train with.
Then because you're gonna wreck these guys, and then you're like hugging afterwards, like, "Hey, dude,
because
thanks for shooting me a lot."
The next iteration, they're gonna wreck you.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that would be definitely, I agree, a good place to start.
It's a good start.
Find something like a ShibWorks class from a known instructor. I mean, what are some other great guys around the country? Chris Fry,
especially he's more up in the Northeast,
sure,
Long Island, upstate New York, New Jersey, that area. But he'll teach other places. He's terrific.
I just know that, like Craig's not everywhere. Like you and I were talking the other day.
Yeah.
I think you and I, who host Craig, a couple times a year here in Arizona, I think we're the only guys maybe in the Southwest.
Yeah. There's
who are
Albuquerque
right now.
And us.
Yeah.
And one guy, LAPD cop out of LA, will bring him to LA. Other than that, in the whole Southwest, we're it.
So, you may have to travel a little bit.
Yeah, travel. I mean, there are some. There's Chris Fry. There's Paul Sharp, who's out of Chicago but travels. He just was in LA.
William April,
great
guy to go train with.
Great, and the knowledge bomb from William is fantastic. There's a handful of guys. I try to do some stuff, along those lines. There are some, and then there are some who aren't necessarily related to us, but who are not part of our
the same
circle,
training group, whatever,
but still do really good stuff. And and if you look a little bit, spend a month hitting a couple forums like TPI, like Pistol Forum,
Pistol Forum,
pistolforum.com, pistol-forum.com, places like that tend to get higher level instructors and higher level participants. You start to figure out soon who is doing good work and who's doing questionable stuff. So I mean, it's not that big of investment, rather than just jumping in because that martial arts school is close by, so I'm just going to start it. No, spend a couple weeks, spend a month surfing around and sending out emails, because most of the people that I know who do this, I love talking to people. You send me an email or something, I love answering questions. It's awesome because I love doing this. So most of them are that way. So you can find that out. And then once you take some of that coursework, you start to know what your weakness is. Like you don't need to find another shooting class. I saw you shoot. In ECQC, I saw you shooting arm movement and structures. Your problem was not shooting. You lit everybody up. But you go, oh, this area I'm weak at, so I'll work here.
Getting pinned on the ground, for example. You can say it. It's all right.
I'm not going to say it.
Well, and I was actually going to mention that earlier, because my whole life has always been a stand-up game.
Sure.
I've got no problems with the shooting, moving, darkness, different weapon systems, manipulation, whatever. I've got that pretty well down. That's what I do for a living. I got that on lock. But stand-up game, I'm good with a stand-up game. Someone wants to grapple stand up, I'm okay with that. Someone wants to start trading blows or whatever, I can make that happen. I get on the ground and I won't lie, man, I hate it. I hate being there. That's a weakness I know that I'm working on now, but it's just that last ECQC class is a perfect example, I think, of like the mindset over skill set.
Yeah.
I was sparring up against a guy who's actually, ironically enough, become kind of one of our students now at Independence Training and firearm stuff, but he was a relatively new BJJ,
like 6
guy.
months at that point.
Yeah, not a lot of time, but had learned a lot about basically just pinning people down. And we went down to the ground, and I, using my superior mindset, all right, and my athleticism, I was like, I can totally throw this guy. I'm just going to grab hold of this guy, and I'm going to throw him, because I've done it before against people who don't know what they're doing, and I can throw people all over the place. So that's what I'm going to do.
Right.
And it didn't work, because I tried to throw him and he evaded it, and then I was in trouble. And I think that's really important, because I can walk away from a situation like that and go, that was the major failure point of the entire weekend. Everything else, fine, it was great, everything else went well. That was a major failure point. Like you said, I identified a weakness, and not
because you had the resistance. You had that pressure.
You have to have that
to find the failure point. You've got to have that resistance. Otherwise, you're going to go along, chugging along. Hey, everything's awesome.
Because if I only relied on my shooting skills to get me out of trouble, how much trouble am I going to get in that requires shooting skills?
Yeah.
As a civilian, Not many.
Hopefully
if any.
Not many.
If any.
Hopefully never.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
How many situations am I going to get in that require some kind of verbal engagement, maybe some hands-on work? I mean, a lot. I've already been in them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The verbal for sure.
Absolutely verbal, and for hands-on stuff. I mean, you're going to get involved in hands-on situations. So when we get into like, now we're pressure testing. Okay. So we found a little bit of resistance. We've trained with the kind of people that are going to give us that resistance. Now we actually want to pressure test something. What would you say, like, what's the difference? Where's the step that you're going to make from, okay, we're just doing this with some resistance to see what works, and now we're going to pressure test something to really find out, you know, if it's actually going to work in the real world? Kind of, where's that step?
You basically tell each guy you need to win. However, not even each guy, however number of people. You want to go 1-on-1, you want to go 2-on-1, 3-on-1, whatever. You have to then say, all right, each participant, you need to win. So now, whatever, 2 bad guys versus 1 good guy, 2 good guys versus 1 bad guy, 1-on-1, they're both trying to accomplish something. And the end goal, you can set the win. Hey, having this guy curled up in a corner crying.
Right.
Okay, there's my win. Pin him so that he's unable to move and your partner can come up and handcuff him. Okay, there's your win. You know, dump a Sims gun magazine into the guy's fist helmet. Okay, there's your win. Whatever it is, but you have to, that's sort of your final test of both guys, as little limitation as possible in what you're doing.
Now, how about from a safety aspect? You know, you mentioned like a fist helmet. For those people who don't know, that's a big, protective, padded, big, heavy plastic shielded mask, or full helmet, I should say, that we use when we're doing force-on-force training with like simunitions guns. There's smaller versions. There's bigger versions. They all suck equally, I think.
Yeah, pretty much.
And, you know, what should we look at from that kind of perspective?
Well, number one, you got to have an instructor or instructors who are really good at, who understand safety protocol, who understand what to look for when things start to go wonky, who've been there, who've had the experience, who probably have been in that situation training wise a gazillion times and can say, well, let's stop this. Something bad's about to happen. Number two, then depending on what you want to allow, you got to gear up for it. Like a lot of times in my own weekly training classes where we're not working Sims guns or weapons and we're just doing hands-on, we only go once every 2 to 3 months where we go full out. And then headgear, cups, mouthpiece, elbow pads, knee pads, all that kind of stuff. Boxing gloves or MMA gloves. If you go with Sims guns, same thing. Fist helmet, eye protection. If you use training blades, training sticks, you got to make sure that they collapse.
They're completely inert.
Yeah, you don't want to have even a dull metal. I did that when I was much younger and stupider. And
yeah, some of those, like those Spyderco trainers, you can still stab somebody.
Oh, and it hurts and can be dangerous. So you got to go with like the soft rubber, plastic, something.
I love those knock trainers.
Those knock trainers are amazing.
Hands down, the best training knife I've ever used.
If you want to hit somebody full on into the body, that's the best way of doing it with the blade.
I love those things.
Yeah. So you've got to have the gear. You've got to have the instructor. You can't just say, hey, let's go. Hey, buddy, let's go in the garage and test this. If you've never done it before, if you've never been through it, you can't do it.
Dangerous.
You're going to get hurt. You have to go through, and that's what something like IACC does for you. Not just you identify the weaknesses and understand what we should be looking for. You also get a feel of what we can do safely. How far can we push the envelope, and how to make sure that we don't step over? All
right, we got to take our last break. Few minutes worth of break time. So we're going to take our last break. When we come back, we're going to kind of wrap up talking about just more pressure testing and how to get it done effectively. You're listening to The Arms Room.
Everyone's going to need an attorney at some point in their life. I'm no different. Hey, everyone, it's James from Vets On. Whether it was my last will and testament before deployment or my ongoing custody battle for my children during my divorce, I needed help, so I lawyered up. If you need help, I urge you to contact Capstrom Law Firm. Capstrom Law Firm in Springfield, Missouri services clients throughout the state in criminal law, personal injury, and family law. With over 13 years practicing law, Tom Capstrom understands both law and court procedures and how stressful they can be. Let Tom Capstrom Law Firm and his dedicated staff take the stress and worry out of a difficult situation by calling him today. We feel so strong about the work that Tom and his staff are doing that he'll be a monthly guest on the show. Tom is a veteran and a listener, for God's sake, so you know the guy is solid and will fight for you. Give Tom a call today by calling 417-864-0552 or email Tom at capstromlaw.com. And don't forget to tell him that Vets On sent you.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
Break a 19. How about that bandit? You got some ears on, son?
Have you ever wanted to be a truck driver? If so, pay attention. If not, pay attention anyway. Southwest Truck Driver Training offers everything you need to get started. You can get hired before you begin training. They've got GI Bill approved training facilities, day, night, or weekend programs to fit your busy schedule. If you have any questions, no sweat. They've got veteran supportive campuses with veterans on staff to serve you. And on top of that, they have lifetime job placement assistance. Put the pedal to the metal. Call Southwest Truck Driver Training today.
If you or someone you know is looking for a new job or career, you need to visit the pros. National Career Fairs at ncfairs.com. National Career Fairs hosts over 300 career fairs a year nationwide. The events are free and give you the perfect chance to meet some of the top employers in your area face-to-face. To find the nearest career fair to you, visit ncfairs.com. Again, that's ncfairs.com. What are you waiting for?
Would you like to own a thriving business and help employ local veterans? The Vetraplex Handyman Construction and Landscape business is the opportunity you've been waiting for. The Vetraplex is your gateway to an affordable startup business with 0% financing for qualifying owners. By owning a Vetraplex franchise, you'll be hiring veterans, providing them both income and opportunity, while at the same time providing your customers a way to say, thank you for your service to our nation's veterans. For more information, visit vetraplex.org. Again, that's vetraplex.org or call 928-284-2022.
You're listening to The Arms Room on the Vets On Media Network.
Right, you're back on The Arms Room. Today we're talking about resistance and training, pressure testing with Cecil Burch from the Media Action Combatives, who, again, is like the absolute best gray man I've ever met in my life. This guy shows up to training. He's got a Hawaiian shirt on, usually like the same Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah, I have a couple that I like.
and you know, jeans or whatever. Totally unassuming guy, but he's so. What else I like about it is Cecil has no ego about what he does. There's so many guys who are just like, disturbing. Yeah, you want to know why I'm awesome? Because I'm awesome. That's why I'm awesome. You know. But Cecil's not like that. That's why we can get along.
Well, you know what? But
I can be the awesome one in this duo.
Until you do more resistance training, and then your ego keeps getting broken down, and you go, I don't have an ego.
That was the problem. I used to have an ego, and then I started doing resistance training, and now I'm like, you know what? I suck. Everybody sucks around me, and
let's all just suck together.
Let's all just go suck together. So one thing that I want to talk about before we have to end our show is we've talked about kind of the difference of combatives and martial arts, and not so much that I guess they're different, but that it's different on how we're going to apply the skills that we learn. We talked about the need for resistance and the need for then pressure testing that resistance. I want to talk a little bit about why pressure testing is so important, at least that I've experienced, and that's because so many things can go wrong. So many things can go wrong.
And you don't know it until the pressure's on.
I mean, the last force on force, I'll call it force on force situation that I did in training was at Craig's EWO class, the Edge Weapons Overview. What was that, November?
Yeah.
And I'm teamed up with a guy, a friend of mine, even
a good friend
of mine, a very close friend of mine, who I've trained with a lot over the years. And we were doing a 2-on-1 evolution where he and I were attacking a guy with a knife. And so I had initiated the contact with this guy with a knife. And quite honestly, this guy's huge, former paratrooper. He's got all kinds of cool background stuff. And I was actually doing okay. I was holding my ground with this guy. You know, I'm getting his knife away. I'm stabbing him a couple of times. And the next thing I know, I am almost off my feet. I mean, I get hit so hard.
Seeing stars.
Oh my gosh, just scramble my head. And my partner, in the blind bull in a china shop rage that he was feeling, mistook me for the guy he was supposed to be attacking and hit me as hard as he possibly could in the side of the head. Total, absolute cheap shot. Things can go wrong. And I think that that's what's important too in pressure testing, is that it's you realize that things can go wrong. You start using sims, your guns are going to malfunction. Sometimes they're not going to work. You're not going to get the desired effect. You're shooting. You're out of ammunition. You're not getting the desired effect. There's no time for a load. You're hitting people with the gun. The gun's getting taken away from you. Things aren't going to go the way that you wish they would.
It's not a perfect world.
Yeah.
I had the first ECQC I hosted Craig in back in 2007, I think. We had a guy, great guy. He's an instructor out of Southern Arizona somewhere. Great guy, awesome shooter. Had never really done any pressure testing type stuff. Does the 2-on-1 Evo, shoots, basically executes both guys.
Right.
The second one didn't even do anything.
Right.
And then when he's playing it back in the debrief, he's basically saying his perception was completely different than reality. It's not that he screwed up, but it was the pressure creates this thing and you've never experienced it before. And all of a sudden you go, oh, it's different than on the range. Just that stuff happens.
I think that debrief that you mentioned is absolutely critical. We do that in our own training where we'll ask people, if we put them under stress, we'll ask them, okay, so what just happened? What did you do? How did you handle it? Like Saturday, we were teaching our IFAC Lifesaver class, and we do these hands-on scenarios at the end of class where everyone has an opportunity to go through these emergency medical scenarios where someone's bleeding out, or they got puncture wounds, or they're yelling, screaming, or they're unconscious, or whatever, and they have to go into this situation, have to evaluate, they have to render aid, all this. And typically it's kind of a hectic, chaotic situation. We use a lot of moulage, so there's blood all over the place. People are getting covered in blood. They're getting, all kinds of stuff's happening. And then when they're standing there at the end, if you immediately ask them, okay, what happened? And let's say on Saturday we had 3-person teams. All 3 people told a different story.
Right.
The perception was totally different.
Right.
So that's something you see a lot in pressure testing as well. And I mean, pressure testing, we've been talking about combatives today, but like I just mentioned,
that's a perfect example.
Emergency medicine.
Exactly.
Everything has to be pressure tested. I can sit there and teach you how to put a tourniquet on, but when your hands literally, like the first scenario we did, the guy's hands are covered in blood. The wound is bleeding. It's squirting blood all over the place. We're pouring blood on the guy. Blood all over the place. He's trying to get the bandage on. He's trying to get the tourniquet on. There's blood everywhere. The patient is not excited about any of this happening. And suddenly he's like, wow, now I see why we were doing so much repetition of just putting the tourniquet on.
You learn the technique, you learn the skill, and then we've got to apply it under pressure. But it's funny. The fighting world is the only world where that's even a debate.
Right.
I'm sure the best medical classes all do the same thing.
Sure.
You do it under Red Cross, whatever. They're going to push you under pressure.
Some kind of scenario role-place training.
You look at commercial pilots. They do
tons of simulations.
Tons of simulations. It's not, is it the exact same situation of a plane crashing? No, but you come as close as possible to do it. It's only in the fighting world, gun world, martial arts, where they go, yeah, but that's not an exact fight. So it's not worth doing.
Because I think there's more ego here.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I think there's a lot more ego in combat. It's why we try to get our shooting students to come and do force on force with us. And so many of them won't because, hey, they can shoot well. They don't want to be shown that they might fail.
Absolutely.
And that's why pressure testing is so important, because failure is so crucial to the learning process.
You can't get better until you fail.
Until you realize what you can't do.
What you can't do. It's lifting weights. Why do you lift weights? You get stronger by pushing that to the point where I can't get that weight. Okay, you do it a little bit more. Now your body gets stronger, but it's not going to get stronger until you get to the point of failure.
That's a good analogy. I mean, you can drop down and you can do 20 push-ups, 20 push-ups. You can do all the 20 push-ups you want. It's not going to.
You're never going to be able to do 25.
You're never going to get any stronger if all you're ever doing is 20 push-ups.
Muscular endurance, maybe cardio, but you're not getting stronger.
Right. And I think that is where the pressure testing really comes in. And I mean, if our listeners can take only one thing away from the show, it's you have to pressure test any skill.
Any skill. At some point, you have to pressure test.
You have to make sure that you're going up against some kind of resistance. And you have to go up against the kind of resistance that's purpose is for you to fail, not for you to succeed. I see a lot of force on force trainings or a lot of scenario based role playing stuff that's set up where in the end you walk out going, the student still wins, and they're like, "Oh, good job, fantastic!" Everyone high fives all around, and it's like, well, hold on a second, we didn't learn anything there. We want, in our classes, as terrible as it sounds, we want our students to experience some failure. Mm-hmm. We want them to go faster than they can shoot. We want them to go harder than they can fight. We want them to, screw up putting on tourniquets. We want them to make mistakes because it's those things that you're never going to forget. There's things that happen in force on force classes that I can't remember all of them. But there's two things I'll never forget. I'll never forget wall of light, and I'll never forget getting pinned.
Right.
You know what I mean? Those are two things I will never forget. Those are the two things that I know, hey, those were mistakes I made.
And now
that in the real world would have cost me my life.
And now you're not going to make them because you're purposely training to not make them.
And those are things I use techniques in both of those situations that are perfect on the square range.
Exactly.
They are perfect on the square range. They would have worked perfect for me in any dojo. They would have worked perfect for me on any shooting range.
The shooting thing, you are 1,000 times better shooter than I am. When you got me when we were going against each other in Amos, I happened to just catch you with that one mistake and, shot you in the back.
A lot.
3 or 4 times. But you're a far better shooter. You're a better tactician shooting wise than I'll ever be. But you made that one mistake because that was a new type situation.
Yeah, totally new situation. I was applying a technique that in the past had worked for me, but quite honestly had never been pressure tested.
But here's the thing. I'll never catch you again that way.
Right.
We'll go through the same thing and you're going to light me up next time.
I'll hide behind doors for you again, buddy.
Yeah, I got to have something going my way.
So I think that that's a really, really critical part is pressure testing and resistance. And basically, if you're not doing it, you're not setting yourself up for success.
At least at some point. Doesn't mean you got to beat yourself to death.
No.
And
you don't have to get injured.
You don't have to get injured. You don't have to be, so sore you can't move the next day every day. Once in a while. And you can graduate that 50%, sometimes 70%. And then the occasional, oh my God, I just got wrecked. Keeps you sane.
Yeah.
Keeps you humble.
It does keep you humble. That is for sure.
I'm not going to be walking. I'm not going to be doing the catwalk.
So, John, you have not said anything this whole show.
Oh, you guys have just
freaking me out, dude.
You guys have just been nailing it.
What do you got going on, man? What do you think about all this?
I was lucky in the fact that as a child, my parents were too cheap or we lived too far away or whatever for me to get involved into like karate or anything like
Plus,
that.
they used to beat the crap out of you, so you got pressure. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Let's not talk about that on the air. So like my first introduction to any type of combatives was Marine Corps boot camp. And obviously in boot camp, things are pressure tested. Like I remember pugil sticks. I'd never hit anyone with a giant Q-tip before. I'd never been hit in the head in that type of environment before.
Right.
And one thing specifically sticks out in my mind. You have a one-on-one and you've got all this gear on. You have a one-on-one with a guy. And then at the end of that, drill instructor grabs you, throws you down this like wooden hallway, and he's like, go. So you're like charging, and you come out into this big open room, and there's like 3 dudes in there. And as soon as you break that doorway, you're getting every living crap stomped out of you. And you have no idea what's going on, no idea where it's coming from. And you're like, oh my God, you're just, so I feel like I've been lucky in the fact that I've always been in those types of situations as far as that type of training went. And then I never really, I did some Muay Thai for a couple of years. I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for a couple of years. And those things were, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in my mind is probably the one traditional martial art that's out there that you're constantly going to be in that pressure tested situation, because you go in the school I used to go to, we would, tonight we're going to cover arm bars, right? We're going to cover arm bars from your strong side. So we drill it. And then each drill would get a little, we do it 4 or 5 times. All right, nice and easy just to get the movement down. Nice and easy to get the movement down. All right, now your partner's going to resist a little bit. Okay, so now you're actually having to work to get that arm bar. And then the last 30 minutes of class or 15 minutes of class, however long it took everybody to get to a certain level, was, all right, now we're going rolling. That's it. We're going to go. You know, if you can use your armbar, or use other stuff that you've learned. So you're testing that skill that you just learned and every skill that you've learned up to that point all the time in that type of class. And you can get to the same level, and the school I was at offered that same type of level when I was doing Muay Thai, because he would have like the beginner's class, the intermediate class, and then there was like beginning sparring and intermediate sparring and things like that. So you were able to get into a ring and put on all the gear and go at 5 or 10%. Hey, all right, let's get these mechanics down. All right, now let's go full bore. You know, so I've been lucky in the combative side of the house that I've always found myself in those types of positions where the things that I know as far as fighting goes, I know they work, and I know them. So,
well, I think that, you know, that's, or I know that, I shouldn't say I think, I know that pressure testing is absolutely critical if you're going to build any skill, whatever that skill may be. We're out of time. I wish we could just keep talking about the subject, but we're out of time. We got to get going. Cecil, thank you so much for coming in the studio.
Thanks for asking me, dude. It was fun.
Don't forget to check out Immediate Action Combatives, IACombatives.com. Check out Cecil. Check out some of the blogs and articles he's written. Very good stuff. We are, as Independence Training, going to be hosting Cecil on the 15th of February for his Immediate Action Jiu-Jitsu class, which is a one-day class. It's kind of intro to ground fighting, so to speak.
It's basic surviving when you find yourself on the ground and you don't want to be there.
Perfect for me. And yes, so we're going to be hosting that up in Chino Valley, Arizona. It's great. It's a cost-effective class, fantastic class to check out. You want more information, shoot us an email over at info@independencetraining.com. We'll get that taken care of and get that info sent over to you. Next week, speaking of pressure testing, we're going to be talking about lessons that we have learned during competitive shooting.
Oh, cool.
And which is pressure testing.
It absolutely
by the way.
is. Absolutely.
Anytime you're under the gun, under the clock, whatever. I'm going to try this week to get John out to his first competitive shoot in one way, shape, or form. We're going to see what happens.
Let's do it.
See what happens, so that he can experience the pressure testing of that beep. So until then, until next time, stay aware, stay safe, and train hard. You've been listening to The Arms Room.
Through the night, that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star spangled banner yet wave for the land? I'm never afraid. You're the home of the brave. Because we are the brave. Yes, we are the brave. We'll fight to rename the name of the brave. We are the U.S. of A. For those unaware, that flag is still there. It's our future to save. Stand of the brave, the U.S. of A. Oh, say, does that star spangled